Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more Let's Read Witch on the Holy Night. I'm going to apologize now. My voice sounds a bit scrungly, more scrungly than usual. I am currently nursing a bit of a cold. At least I hope it's a cold. But, well, I want to play. And, I mean, I was literally dying when I was doing Fate's Day Night, which coincidentally lined up with the Shiro fire scenes, so it all works out. It's just getting the same experience, you know? The school day over, Soujyuro headed straight to his job. While the school had approved his jobs at the Chinese restaurant and the fish market in Masaki's shopping district, there was other work he hadn't mentioned to them. And it was not because he knew that they would complain at him working too many, but rather because of the illicit nature of one job in particular. Oh, he's not a host, is he? Oh, did they get him with his good looks? Today's workplace was a Pachinko Parlor. Okay, we're actually kind of close. Pachinko Parlor in front of Yashirogi Station. Soujyuro changed out of his school uniform and into a black faux tuxedo uniform, and then began cleaning the storefront. Yashirogi was the jewel of Masaki City, a busy place with a vast assortment of commercial centers and shopping arcades. Where there were people en masse, there were products made en masse. En masse. How do you say that? En masse, right? That's what it is. A romantic might describe it as a place of joy, a realist would note the free enterprise, and a cynic would point at all the garbage. Local authorities had attempted to beautify Yashirogi, but there was one basic tenet of society they could not overcome. This establishment was the embodiment of that rule. Businesses such as this attracted the dregs of society, and as such, the front of the parlor had to be cleaned several times a day. Soujyuro stood outside in the winter cold, sweeping up used cigarette butts, picking up discarded flyers, and tossing empty cans into the trash. Something about it must have reminded him of mountain life because, well, he cheerfully finished the job with ease. Oh, the lights. After making sure the storefront was acceptably clean, he returned to the inside of the parlor where it was nice and warm. Blinding lights, deafening sounds, and the oppressive odor of tobacco assaulted him as he passed through the parlor on his way to the office. Can I just say, I do really like where I moved, and I do like my neighbors, who is coincidentally my landlord and an extremely nice landlord. But man, the smell of cigarette smoke just permeates, and it's strange coming from a place where I'd say like 1% of people smoked.
店長、外回りの掃除終わりました。
はい、ご苦労様。それでいいかな。2階の40番台のお客さんの様子見てきてくれない？
Uh-oh.
どうも懐に飲んでそうなんだよね。
Oh.
あのお姉さん。
Watch this be a character we know. His boss was a good-natured man who used to work a desk job. The reason he employed someone like Soujyuro, even though he was clearly a student, was not because he admired him for working his way through school. It was because all the other employees were scary and intimidating, and he wanted at least one employee who was not. That's actually
いいんで
fair.
すか？トイレの掃除まだですけど。
いいのいいの。なんかね、カメラの死角にいるんでいまいち確証取れないの。
How do you even cheat at Pachinko?
そうちゃん、今のところ的中率 100% でしょ。様子見てきてくれないかな。
I feel like they're so well regulated, how would you even cheat at them? Well, aside from the obvious answer of magic. Hearing that, Soujyuro put away his cleaning equipment and headed upstairs. It was a typically large-scale Pachinko parlor with 2 floors. It prided itself on being a local establishment that was satisfied with taking the locals' money little by little without resorting to more exploitative means. Can you imagine that? Pachinko, exploitative? Ha ha ha. But regardless of the parlor's intentions, its customers were not so scrupulous. Among them were casual players, professional gamblers, and cheaters looking to profit by exploiting whatever loopholes they could find. Of particular prevalence was a device— oh, well, here we go. Well, thank you for explaining. Of particular prevalence was a device developed in the mid-80s that could disrupt a machine's circuitry from the outside and make it much easier to get what was called a 777 jackpot. As much as the parlor wanted to deny these cheaters entry, it needed to present hard evidence of cheating or risk losing customers. Particularly in the service industry, innocence until proven guilty was a rule not taken lightly. The customer is God, is the Japanese saying. As a result, they could only punish the customers they caught in the act. Such cheaters was known as gotoshi, a slice of society which Soujyuro knew nothing about. What he did know was that they were inconveniencing his employer and violating their rules. He went upstairs. The radio and game machine sounds on the second floor were quieter than the cacophony downstairs. There were 100 game machines on the ground floor and over 80 on the second. While there were some empty seats here and there, it was a solid evening turnout. The machine mentioned by his boss was in the center aisle. Soujyuro nonchalantly leaned back against the wall and watched the customer hit the jackpot over and over again. Oh frick, I know you! Oh boy. The second he saw her, his gut told him that she was not cheating. My god, do you see that? Holy crap. Holy crap. I didn't get to see much of that in Garden of Sinners or Fate Extra. He was still not sure what made someone a master swindler, but if it meant they were special, this woman certainly fit that description. It was almost as if he could feel the luck emanating from her. It's actually interesting that she's in the city here. As the customers looked on, she silently turned the handle again and again. She appeared older than Soujyuro. She wore a green, form-fitting, that's the word I would use, green dress, a one-piece dress. A pair of stockings covered her legs. Her slender legs were gracefully crossed, and her elegance suited a painting better than a casino. Her dark, reddish hair was cut short in a bob, perfectly framing her stylish spectacles and crimson lips. Truth be told, something was off about this picturesque beauty ringing the jackpot over and over again. 4 boxes worth of pachinko balls sat at her feet, and her winning streak showed no sign of abating. She looked bored as her slender porcelain fingers lifted a long cigarette to her lips. Yeah, some things don't change there. Just as that thought crossed his mind, her gaze turned toward the wall, and Soujyuro. Hello? Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. He reflexively covered his mouth to keep from shrieking. Oh, interesting. Acting on pure instinct, Soujyuro took off running. He headed straight downstairs, desperate to not be on the same floor as her. He would have run straight out the door, but for his obligations to his job. He tried to keep his composure as he spoke, jamming his school uniform into a paper bag as he ran out of the parlor. Dang, dude's scared. This is almost exactly a shot from Tsukihime. Cloudy weather brought the shadow of night over Yashiroki as he ran through the shopping arcade toward the station. He shot up the long staircase like an arrow, quickly pulling his train pass from his wallet and passed through the ticket gate. The ticket gate was crowded with people standing around, walking and talking. The station attendant by the automatic ticket machine had an unpleasant look on his face. There was now a familiar, comforting hustle and bustle around him. That's the thing. When I took the trains in Tokyo, it was a hustle and bustle, but it was comforting in the way it worked. Just another day in the city. You know, you have to survive. Nothing like what he witnessed the night before. He could finally breathe again. The momentary rush of relief brought him to an abrupt stop. He nervously turned around. There was no way that dangerous individual could be behind him. Oh, buddy, you don't know. He couldn't think of a good reason for why he'd fled so desperately. As far as he could remember, he hadn't seen the threat's face long enough to form an opinion about her. Soujyuro gave himself a good slap on the cheek, the one on his face, to pull himself together and quickly made his way down to the platform. Unfortunately, the next train was 10 minutes away, and panicking would do him no favors, so he quietly found an empty seat and sat down. She's gonna be... she's right behind me, isn't she? Took another deep breath. He was surrounded by people waiting for the train just like he was, and no sign of anyone pursuing him. His head finally cleared up, and he assured himself that he was overthinking things, though he was surprised at how heavy his shoulders felt. Okay. So, theory update. If this character is after him, I'm feeling like he's not human. and talking about his body. Soujyuro sighed at his greater than expected fatigue. He had certainly struggled since coming down from the mountains, but in retrospect, it could have been worse. Physically, he was probably holding up fine. He was much less confident in his mental state. The city and the mountains could not have been more different. I feel like all the stuff about the mountains is implanted memories. He had been slow to recognize the differences and adapt. Acclimation was simple enough. Humans were nothing if not adaptable. Even without any effort, one would learn to adjust over time. Recognizing the challenges had been the hard part. Beans. Soujyuro grumbled a complaint he'd never uttered before. To be honest, he was still afraid to wander around town. There were so many things city people took for granted that Soujyuro had yet to grasp. It was little wonder that his never-ending chain of surprises would wear on him. Oh. Yeah. In real life, I feel like if you had a hallucination, it's like, yeah, it could actually be a hallucination. I feel like if you're in a video game or an anime or anything, this line of, oh, that was just a hallucination, is never. He muttered to himself, then shook his head. That which exists, exists. Such was the way of all things. Tobimaru had called it a hallucination, but Soujyuro knew what he saw was real. The city was a magical kingdom compared to the mountains. If there were real magicians secretly living here, that should have been no surprise at all. Oh, buddy. The thought alone made his legs tremble. It took him a moment longer to realize that they were quivering out of fear. He had feared the unnatural ever since he encountered a wild bear on a mountain path as a child. That would scare you, yeah. Especially Japanese bears are huge. Soujyuro smiled a little as he recalled his traumatic childhood memory. That's a fun line. Anyone would have fainted at the sudden appearance of a growling beast that towered over 6 feet tall. The monster in the movie that Soujyuro saw not 2 days ago was the equivalent of a cuddly stuffed animal when compared to the wild mountain creatures. Well, especially when you look at Japan's, effects at the time. He was reminded that he'd faced far worse before, and his ordeal now was something he could endure. At face value, the meaning was obvious, but the implications were simply too frightening to contemplate seriously. Perhaps he had misheard the words, or perhaps the speaker had misspoke. His story would be a lot different if we just put Frank Castle, the Punisher, in here. Even as he said it, the idea didn't feel quite right, or quite real. It was hard to imagine that it applied to him. Soujyuro breathed in and closed his eyes. His vision dimmed, putting the illuminated cityscape out of sight and out of mind. For now, he resolved to put last night's events behind him. When he opened his eyes, his breathing had calmed. Well, we know now. The question suddenly popped into Sojuro's head. He decided he would ask next time, and stood up from his chair. A long street of light blazed by, announcing the arrival of the next train. That was a strange transition. Hey, it's like that every day. Nights? Into dreams? Cool. Again, I apologize if my throat is, again, got some of them scrungles. More so than usual. Okay. I don't think there's anything new in the archive. Maybe there is. What is this? Oh, wait, what? I pressed X. What? Did I not? Chapter... Oh no, wait, this is what we read, right? Okay, yeah. So no, that is the same. Oh, so it actually... Like, Chapter 1, then Chapter 1.5 got added. The way that it's done is kind of cool. With the chapter names, also, they don't match up. Lunchtime together, so what? Urban style, city style. It's like It's like they were afraid of some of the choices. But yeah, the books are like different books. That's cool. That's a cool archive. Okay, well, let us simply continue then. Knights. 3 knights. That looks like the cover for like a Adam Sandler romantic comedy. Thank you. I was waiting for this. Let me tell you how the events of yesterday transpired. On moonless nights, you must never look back. Was it a lesson, or was it a warning? It was so very long ago. At the time, I could not have imagined what my very being would become. Okay. One night, it came without warning. I was filled with an anxiety so heightened that it would make me want to burst into tears. Oh no, this is Aoko. So I fled into my grandfather's workshop. That makes more sense. Okay, this is... I thought that this was Soujyuro. Unlike the grandfather I knew, he smiled and kindly placed his hand upon my head. Yes, the Red Death follows your every step. Well, rather than consoling me, he sent me home with only those haunting words. Those are terrifying words. That night, I'm certain I sensed a shadow lurking behind me. Something or someone watching me from afar. Then little by little, year by year, it drew closer. Eventually, the presence that once felt like a spot on the horizon grew so close, I could feel its breath down the base of my neck. Of course, it was all on my mind. When I turned around, nobody was there. But that night marked the beginning. In hindsight, I later understood that indescribable anxiety I felt was the dread of certain death. Once again... Oh, doing this again. Once again, though, Nasu horror writing is so good. How much time has passed since that night? It lingered deep in the recesses of my mind where childhood memories are kept. A faded storybook-esque memory. On dark nights, I still hear the faint echo of my grandfather's words. But no matter how strong the wind may howl, or how entrancing the song of the girl next to me, I could never bury his ominous words completely. The girl beside me said, "Oh, right, they said to come to the park, and that's where we're going to do the thing. We don't know what the thing is, but we know they're doing a thing here." Alice's inflectionless voice spoke volumes of her role as the bystander. That night, there was only me and her. It was the night I would mark the birth of who I am today. For what should have been quite the memorable night, it sure wasn't a promising start. Dense clouds blocked the starlight above like a black umbrella. Strong wind tore through the sky, carrying the heavy clouds with it. The hands on the clock in the middle of the park pointed skyward, as if reaching for the moon. Yo! Big white puffer jacket. Proper New Yorker. Unfortunately for them, tonight there was no moon to point at. The winter air grew fiercer as the night wore on. Inhaling felt as though it would freeze me from the inside. Whoa. Let me be clear. The air chilled me to the bone, threatening to pass up my spine directly to my brain. To prevent my mind from being paralyzed, and to prevent my fingertips from becoming stone, I sparked a fire using my internal rhythm and emotion. Huh. Although will-o-wisps being part of her moveset make a lot of sense, because those are myths. I responded to Alice with a nod, and then, for just a moment, I saw the ground. My legs quivered ever so faintly. I told myself they were shaking from the cold, but I wasn't so sure. In reality, they may not have been numbed by the cold, but by fear. I breathed a sigh of relief. My humanity must still be intact, if my emotions are still present. This is a first-person chapter. Interesting. A lot of them have been third-person, but this one is first-person. Before I could sink into a pool of my own sentimentality, the sensations from the bounded field flowed from Alice into me. A transparent wall covered the entire park. An unrecognizable carpet rooted deep under the earth. Whoa. Alice Kuonji's chants of the Mother Goose fairy tales permeated the night. The sensations became one with my body. Oh, that's the magic circuits? Yo, is that her magic circuits? They are extremely straightforward. Whereas, like, Shiro's branch out like a circuit board. Hers flow straight, almost like telephone wire. I felt goosebumps on my quivering right arm. Someone had trespassed. The goosebumps crept up my right arm like ants. Ants. Slowly but surely made inroads for my heart. Ants. Holding back my desire to drive them out, I waited for them to reach a certain definitive position. Ant-Man. A moonless night. The park's quaint street lights were not enough to lift the darkness. The ants came to a stop. Sorry, I can only ever think of the Ant-Man. Ants have been ruined for me. Ants. And the ham boning. Far, far away from my right arm, they reached my very heart. What am I looking at? What the frick am I looking at? Even without the aid of my sense of sight, I could see the intruder lurking in the darkness. To starboard, in the bushes about 30 steps back on all fours, it was beckoning with its right hand.
Suga!
The enemy's movement and my perception of it were in lockstep. I spun around. What? The enemy's arm stretched out like a spear. Yo? This lethal weapon, aimed at the back of my head, brushed my hair at breakneck speed. With the omniscient view granted by Alice's ward, I managed to avoid it by the skin of my teeth. My hair fanned through the air from the violence of the attack. An attack grazed my cheek and I felt a small, sharp pain. It felt like the kiss of death. Whoa, I switched the flow of my body's blood to a different cycle. Whoa, these are like layers. The blood running through my veins at a few feet per second transmuted into an imaginary element. Hold up. You have imaginary element mage craft? Interesting. My body became a single circuit. Wow. Oh, wow. So yeah, what I said was true. It's like a single sort of telephone wire. That's interesting. And my heart transformed into a completely different engine. An unknowable motion of immeasurable heat. A mystic, yet untapped by humankind that made me who I am. A mystic, you say? The fire of life behind all miracles and fables. Whoa. This is what we mages call magical energy.
セット
I turned around, set the enemy in my sights, and held up one hand. My arm was the agent of my will. My lack of experience meant my magecraft would only be possible with the usage of vocalizations and gestures. See, this is so funny, because, like, here she's saying, like, I have to concentrate, I have to be careful, I have to use the spell correctly, and that we know in Melty Blood, she's throwing them off and going, beam, 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 which is amazing. I love knowing where she goes, right? That's a good thing, and knowing she kind of chills out over time, but at the same time gets scarier. It's so good. Magical formulae were engraved all over the park. All I had to do was ignite them. I needed to direct the flow of the magical energy within my body into each formula. Typically, a mage acts as a conduit. Whether wired or wireless, the mage simply pours magical energy into the formula. Releasing this energy in the form of projectile, stream, or any number of methods would usually suffice, but in my case, it was the feeling of my limbs whipping out.
Moira!
I fought speed with speed. Now what the frick are we looking at? We haven't even seen the enemy. The enemy's arm extended 10 feet forward, became engulfed in flames. It was nighttime at the park, the scene reminiscent of a campfire, but one in which the center of the flame contained a humanoid figure wriggling like a shadow puppet. If it's a puppet, well, there we go. The flame subsided just as unnaturally as it had ignited. No crackling, no burning smell.
結界返すわ死体を確認するから
After telling this to Alice, I headed toward the motionless figure. I killed it. What is it? I killed it. I killed it. Regardless of who my opponent was, I just took someone's life. My throat parched, I swallowed the truth that without this sense of reality, I would have been helpless. So hard and bitter, impossible to swallow, but I tried to anyway. I was unnervingly calm. My heart pounded and my breath felt heavy, but my mind was nonetheless calm. By the time I realized it, the charred remains were already in front of me. Bracing for a counterattack, I carefully examined the corpse. Everything seemed fine. The body lying slumped to the ground was nothing but ash. But something wasn't right. To begin with, its remains didn't smell organic. Not willing to believe my hunch, I took a closer look at the corpse's face. All that greeted me was the featureless white face of a mannequin. Screaming, I kicked the mannequin. The corpse crumbled to ash and disappeared with the wind. No, this was no corpse. This was just a puppet, and for all our efforts to lure the master out, we had once again been tricked by a familiar. My debut, my first test out in the open, would be postponed for another day.
いつになったら一人前にって。あれ?
At that moment, I suddenly noticed something familiar in the corner of my eye. Something seemed strange about the slide on the other end of the park. It appeared as though its shadow were larger than it should be. Was I still drunk on the high of battle? It took me a second to realize what it was. Oh? Calling out was a mistake. Startled by my voice, the figure, wearing a familiar high school uniform, took a step back and then it broke into a sprint. Like someone running for their life. Or should I say, he was doing exactly that. Uh-oh. In a rush, I shouted at my partner, but she hadn't even noticed the third party's presence in the first place. Though it wasn't as if I could move by myself. Embarrassingly, the fight had taken more out of me than I would have liked. There was no time for niceties. For us, being seen here was a matter of life and death. Well, we know who that was now. Shaking off the numbness in my legs, I made for the park's exit. I had to admire his escape. The witness, party to the entire night's proceedings, had disappeared into the darkness of the residential district without a trace. It's almost like he might not be human. Hey, again, don't tell me yes or no, I'm guessing. Complaining to myself wouldn't bring back the figure in uniform. Bitter at my own incompetence, I gave up the chase. Though temporary, the park had become Alice's woods. Oh, interesting. For anyone within a few feet of the park, other park goers' identifiable features and voices became murky, like the stuff of fairy tales. Oh, that's an interesting thing with the bounded field. Tonight's proceedings may have had a witness, but if our identities were still hidden, well, then this was still a chance. I returned to the park. That uniform was, without a doubt, from my high school. That was clue enough. If he was a schoolmate of mine, I had plenty of methods to flush him out. Unfortunately, that's life. Amidst my grumbling, I set my priorities straight. Before some strange rumors spread, I needed to seal the witness's mouth shut. That was the highest priority, quickly and without mercy. Looking up, I saw Alice's previously distant figure. Though she was in as much trouble as I was with her existence as a magus exposed, she had but one thing to say. Her statue-like figure, staring into the darkness, seemed more expressionless than calm. I was pissed off. Her inscrutable voice resembled the moonless night so much it made me angry. So now we're going to get his perspective of him just going to the park and be like, I'm going to lay down. Oh, that was short. That was very short. Oh, wow. That's ludicrously short. Yeah, wow, that's a tiny chapter compared to the others. Okay. Well, I don't need to completely... Oh, they call these tea times? That's strong. I just realized that. That's real good. I don't need to actually stop at a save point like this. So no, we're just going to continue. Blues in her name. It is Aoko Aozaki. Blue McBlue Man. No, her name would literally be Bluey, Bluey Bluestein, essentially. There really is another way of saying this. I am a magician. Kind of like those witches in fairy tales who live alone in the woods and perform miracles with a wave of a finger. While the popular depiction of it differs from reality, it's closer to the truth than you know. Though just so we're clear, no, I don't fly through the sky on a broom. Someone else does, though. I cannot transform into animals or speak with small birds. Well, you have the one, though. Modern mages are nothing so fanciful. Some use guns. Our existence sounds unbelievable, but we're quite grounded. Though it may seem like we can do anything, we're actually majorly constrained. And while I still have a lot to learn about it, this is my real job. Sounds a lot more romantic than being a high school student, right? Naturally, this is a secret I don't just share with anyone. A mage must do everything in their power to conceal their work. That is the first and most important of the Association's 10 laws. Not that I'm tempted to let the cat out of the bag in the least. My secret identity as an honor student is intact, and absolutely no good would come of me revealing my true nature. If anything, it'd only lead to more headaches. That's why I do everything in my power to keep it a secret. Of course, if I'd accomplished anything as a magician by now, then maybe I'd see it differently. I fantasized about revealing my secret's life's work to a single special person when I finally make something of myself. Yeah, it'd be pretty stellar just to confess one day, by the way, I'm a magician. That idea alone is enough to keep me from spoiling the big reveal, regardless of the association's rules. That's a good way of going about it. My grandfather patted me on the head when I shared these thoughts with him. I don't know if that was praise or what, but I remember that his touch was gentle. I first learned that I would be succeeding my grandfather on the day I graduated middle school. Interesting. Why did... Do we know why Aoko succeeded instead of Toko? When I returned home, there he was. Yeah, here we go. Oh, there we go. Your elder sister left on a journey. From this day forth, you are heir to the Aozaki. He said it in such a matter-of-fact way. Interesting. I knew that the Aozaki family passed down this old tradition of magecraft, but to be honest, I never imagined I would be the one to wield it. It usually just goes to the eldest, right? And they almost never bring it down to the next two people, because you literally transplant the magic circuits, right? No, the magic crest. Magecraft is supposed to be passed down to a single child. It was my sister's role to take the mantle, and I had no interest in dedicating myself to so many rules and routines. I planned to live a normal life. I had hopes and dreams for the future. I felt bad for my sister, and I was determined to live my life my way. And while I managed to do that, just for a time, I was blindsided by a vicious counterpunch. Since then, I've been thrust headlong into a world I'd only observed from afar. It was a hell of a way to start high school. Oh, it just happened. But I suppose it wasn't all that bad, all things considered. A lot has happened since then. I was so dazed by this newfound life that a year of school motored right by. I was a second year before I knew it. Thankfully, nothing drastic has happened. 6 months my roommate and I totally tried to kill each other with, notwithstanding. As it happens, I've got a natural talent at this magic stuff, so I've yet to have any hang-ups there either. I'm only human, so I've had my fair share of headaches for sure, but never once did I worry about my future. I thought my life would be smooth sailing all the way. If only everything had gone to plan last night. Uh-oh. Alice Kwonji asked Aoko Ozaki the second she entered the house. Now we're back to third person. Her dark eyes succeeded where her voice failed to communicate the gravity of the situation. Cute scarf. Aoko took off her unflattering coat. I think it's flattering. Hung it on the hanger and sat down on the sofa. Alice sat across from her with a table separating them.
そっちは
よくないわね。偵察に行けるのは7個くらい。ここのところ使ってばかりで、作り置きをする余裕もなかったし。
Familiars, perhaps? Alice's gaze drifted from Aoko to the box on the table.
あの夜、町を監視していた奴はいないの？町の偵察は完璧なんでしょ？そいつら。
それは昼間の話よ。夜間飛行は危険が多いわ。
Meaning they were of the least use when needed the most. Aoko sighed.
そういうあなたは朝は随分と強気だったけど。
ああ、こっちは予定通りよ。明日までには絞り込めると思う。今朝、飛び丸にうちの生徒の自宅と行動時間を調べさせたから。
That's not an abuse of power at all.
あの時間に公園をうろつくやつはめったにいないし、簡単に割り出せる。
そう簡単に行くの？
行くわよ。 伊達に生徒会に勤めてないわ。
Oh.
その程度のデータは揃えてある。
Oh, wow. I almost respect the hustle.
月1のバイト先はおろか、親しい友人宅との移動時間、その優先順位まで調べ上げてるんだから。
You know, I'd say it's a bit weird that the school keeps track of that, but then again, that about tracks with how my school here is.
人には見せたくなかったリストだけど、そんな余裕ないでしょ。だからそういうのが向いてる副会長にやらせたの。
Incidentally, the creation of this secret file started the moment Aoko became student council president. The mere rumor of its existence was enough to strike fear into the entire student body, yeah, for obvious reasons.
そう。徹底しているわね。
Alice was only mildly surprised. It had been almost 2 years since they first started living together. She knew as well as anyone that when Aoko put her mind to something, she saw it through to the end.
ま、私もあれがこんな風に役立つとは思ってもみなかったけど。ほんと、備えあれば憂いなしとはこのことね。
What happened last night was far beyond a mere exception to the rule. This predicament should not have even been possible.
それより原因は分かったの？結界の結びに不手際があったなんてのは聞かないわよ。
Aoko glared at her. The ward was Alice's responsibility. If it was to blame for last night's trouble, Alice had to own up to her fair share. Alice and Aoko had been roommates and partners, but it was a relationship of convenience. While lineage had brought them together, they were more like enemies than allies. Ultimately, they were just not a match. Where there was blunder, it was punished. Where there was an opening, it would be attacked. If there was even an opportunity, the two of them would kill each other in the event of such a moment. Alice locked eyes with Aoko. Aoko's fierce gaze could make a grown man cower in fear, but Alice did not bat an eyelash.
仮の話だけど、あの結界に落ち度があったのなら、今まで何度もこういう状況になっていたでしょうね。
Suppose you're right, Aoko agreed, as the question reaffirmed her trust in Alice.
結界のあり方は完璧だったのね。
絶対とまでは断言はできないけど。
Alice answered as flatly as ever. A bounded field is like a sanctuary sealed away from the real world. Also, dang, look at this. That's some blue. Steps are taken, whereby a certain area is cut off from the outside world. There are various kinds of bounded fields. There are physical ones that close off an area behind a wall, and less tangible ones that use mirrors, mist, or trees to conceal that which occurs within. However, when closing off an area to the outside world, you cannot avoid communicating the abnormality's existence. In other words, the area may be closed off to the outside world, but it is impossible to hide the fact that it is closed off. In time, someone will take interest in a sealed-off area, even if they cannot see what's going on inside. Some might say this is putting the cart before the horse. The ideal field would be one that was both undetectable and impervious to interference from the outside. That was exactly the kind Alice had generated in the park the night
そ
before.
の場所に用があっても、今はないように思わせれば、誰もそこには立ち入らない。隠したい場所の周りに、一時的な意識の改ざんを促す結界を張る。手間はかかるんだけど、1時間程度の人よけには信頼性は高い結界よね。アリスの鏡を使った一級品だし、途中で破れることもない。事実、入ってきたのはあの人形だけだとはっきり感じられた。これで完璧じゃなかったら何が完璧なのよ。
So you did detect a puppet's presence, though. Again, that says a lot to me.
私もわからない。森作りに落ち度はなかったわ。
I like the idea of it being like the woods from fairy tales as her bounded field.
森は数日かけて栽培したものだし、今まで通り信頼できる結界よ。けど例外があったのなら、どこかで見落としがあったのね。
Though Alice's words conceded the possibility, her eyes expressed her confidence that she overlooked nothing.
参った。こうなると、一番いいのは、あいつが人形使いだってパターンね。それならかろうじて納得できる。相手が魔術師なら、結界の侵入ぐらいできるでしょうし。
Now my question is, when you say the puppeteer, do you mean just the one controlling the puppet, or do you mean the puppeteer? 'Cause there's a big difference there.
問題は侵入した時の違和感をどう
I
や
don't
って
think
消
she
したかっ
knows,
てこと
so
だ
I
けど
think it's the former. No, definitely, because she thought it was male. The thought of being targeted by this individual was pretty terrifying. If they were able to penetrate Alice's field, it could only mean that their skill in magecraft was superior to Alice's. Alice, in her current state, would be completely helpless against such a foe. Dragon
そ
Ball
の線
chocolate.
はないわ。彼は部外者よ。ムクドリはともかく、ロビンが後をたどれなかったもの。魔力の気配は全くなし。
Oh, right.
誰かの魔術で操られている犠牲者。
A bird
という
hit
のもない
him,
わね。
right? Well, that makes sense. Aoko was quickly running out of straws to grasp at, and that meant that she was out of questions to ask. All she could do was call it bad luck and leave it at that.
魔術師の秘密を見られておまけに目撃者を逃がしたか。普通
And the-
の高校生の悩みじゃないな。
And the prom's tomorrow. The sofa groaned as she leaned back. Her gaze went up to the brown ceiling with a sigh. It wasn't much of a view. She was becoming increasingly depressed. Yo, same.
青子、覚悟を決めておいて。
Her roommate's voice seemed indifferent, but Aoko just kept staring at the wooden ceiling.
それとも、あなたにできないのなら、私が言ってあげてもいいけど。
The cool-mannered girl's statement carried an equally icy implication. Aoko took the words in slowly with as much sincerity as she could muster. It was like trying to swallow molten lead.
そうだ。覚悟なんてもう決めたでしょ。
The thought sounded hollow, even as it popped into her head. This was clearly different from last time. While the aim was indeed the same, the circumstances surrounding her target were clearly different. She may have been determined before, but that was as a mage. If enemies emerged, she would kill them. If she was challenged, she would step up to the fight. It was a fight between it was a fight between two mages, and her opponent was in the wrong. Even if this could only end in death for one of them, it was an outcome both parties could accept. Kill or be killed. Morality has no weight on this scale. But this time was different. Her opponent was neither enemy nor mage. Even if she was prepared to kill them, this person was likely not ready to die. That's why morality did factor into it now. Was she truly up to the task of murdering an innocent person? Could she swallow the fact that this was a common occurrence for a mage? She snortled sardonically. That's some good alliteration. Being a mage did not mean that Aoko was some kind of monk who could cut ties with the real world on a whim. If there was one thing Aoko hated, it was doing things without conviction or an understanding of why exactly she was doing them. When she acted, she preferred to act decisively.
やるしかないだろうね。
As she said it, she got up from the sofa, having had her fill of the ceiling for one day. That's good. Aoko had returned to the Aoko of always, and Alice was done probing her.
じゃあ、これ。
As if to reward her, Alice produced a small bottle. It's Kahlua. It might be. It fit neatly in the palm of her hand. The bottle looked completely out of place in her slender fingers. The glass was cloudy and it appeared empty. Some shreds of paper remained on the front where there was once a label.
何よそれ。
Aoko stared at the bottle suspiciously.
収納の小瓶。ちょうど一つ余ってたから。
Oh, is this like Rin's chest?
はい。
名前は忘れたけど、中国の小説に出てきたのと同じよ。
Cool. Aoko was miraculously able to parse what Alice meant.
それってレンゲ堂の兄弟の話？じゃああの赤いひょうたんと同じなわけ？
Actually, I think I might have heard that one.
言いたくないけど、そこら辺の風邪薬のラベルを無理やり剥がして小瓶に見せかけてるそれが？
Yeah, the label ripped off is the funny part. Alice looked at the bottle and acknowledged how ordinary it looked. She also understood that she would not be the one using it as she set it on the table.
赤いひょうたんじゃなくて、陽子玉の上瓶の方。
そういう問題じゃない。私は魔術師としての雰囲気を論じてるんだ。
些細なことを気にするのね。 せいろがんの瓶じゃないだけいいと思うけど。
Aoko pooping ASMR. She made a good point.
蓋を開けて相手の名前を尋ねればいいから。
Oh?
ただし相手に抵抗する意志が残っている場合、
Huh.
小瓶は割れるから気をつけて。
Aoko raised her eyebrows.
ちょっと待った。抵抗する意志があるとダメって眠っている時にやれってこと？
それは試したことがなかったわ。眠っているのに返事をする人っているの？
I know, I mean, there's you see the videos of people who they get surprised in their sleep and they immediately go to punch someone. That couldn't be me.
たまにいるけど。まあ確かに珍しいわね、そういう人。
Also, some of those videos might actually be super fake. In that case, one would have to weaken them until they were about to pass out.
ああ、そうそう。薬や魔術がかかっているとその重さでも割れるから気をつけて。
Are you saying that I can't put drugs in this drug bottle?
使えない。それってほとんど役立たずってことじゃない。
それは青子次第ね。
Alice turned away as she replied, as if the topic no longer mattered to her.
はあ、アリスがこういう小道具好きなのは知ってたけどね。これも趣味なわけ？
Aoko asked, hoping Alice would deny it.
多分。それでどうするの？持っていくのか行かないのか。
Without answering, Aoko dithered a bit before taking the bottle and putting it in her pocket. She figured she might be able to find some use for it. So what does it do? What exactly does it do? It says it are you saying that you could, like, you would say the name and do they appear in it? Is that what it is? Is it like a Dragon Ball ceiling thing? I don't know. 2 hours had passed and the clock struck 9. Their conversation had moved from the drawing room to the sunroom and had manifested into the kind of scene one would not expect in such a mansion.
まあ
Oh,
本当はね、
yo.
飛び丸に任せる気はなかったんだけど。
Oh, that looks good. You got the konbu in there? Are those some potatoes? Nice. A hot earthenware pot sat on the table. Aoko spat out complaints to no one in particular as she plucked food from it with her chopsticks. Tonight they were eating a traditional Japanese meal that looked out of place in the mansion. When it came to the kind of Japanese hot pot where all one had to do was buy and boil ingredients, it was usually Aoko's responsibility. Yo, guys, I've been doing so much hot pot here. Oh my god. I am shocked that the West hasn't just found hot pot and been like, this is it, this is our life now. Like, just, I've gone to so many conveyor belt hot pot places where it's just, you have a conveyor belt of ingredients in front of you, you're given a pot of boiling broth of your flavor, you pop in whatever you want. And it's so good. It's so good. Alice sat across from Aoko as she silently poked at the pot with a fork. White.
山城のやつが来るなり、しずきくんはまだ部活に入っていないから面倒見てあげてくれないかな、なんて言ってくるもんだからさ。全校生徒の行動範囲なんて見直す気力なくなっちゃったのよ。
The egg she'd plucked was still as silky as a baby's bottom, so she returned to the pot. Can't do eggs, get those out of there. She settled for the shirataki noodles instead. Yo, putting noodles in hot pot is so nice. Oh, she's so mad.
そりゃあのバカがバイトで忙しいのは知ってるわよ。
You just can't match the efficiency of chopsticks. Like, why are you using a fork?
だからできるだけ春先までのんびりしてて、あんなのでも親身になってくれそうな部の部長に当たってみたのに。
Wait, hold up. Her last name is Kuonji. That is a very Japanese last name. Come on.
ありがとうの一つもないってのはちょっと尺に触るわよね。ねえ、聞いてるアリス。
As her mouth was full, she simply nodded in response. Her expression stated that she had no interest or opinion on the matter, but she at least appeared to be listening. Satisfied, Aoko nibbled on some hanpin fish cake.
それに私、いい人なんて言われるやつは信用できないのよ。あろうことか、飛び丸までそんなこと口走る始末だし。あれはいい人なんじゃなくて、ただぼんやりしてるだけなんだっての。だいたいあそこまで言われて怒りもしないなんてどうかしてるわ。
Maybe he's just chill, bro. Her thoughts went to what happened in the student council room earlier that day. She remembered how non-responsive Soujyuro had been to her words. His unconcerned face alone was enough for her to swallow the rest of her hanpen without chewing it.
何が分かってるんだなよ。
God. The slightly shaking pot to convey the heat, the tapping of the chopsticks. Once again, these are the most incredibly brilliant ways of using just stock, like, still images from a visual novel that I've ever seen. His words were a lot like those that ended her
青
childhood.
子ちゃんは分かっているんだね。それでも自分であり続けられるということはとても強いことなんだよ。
Perhaps it was meant as a compliment. That voice was familiar. In fact, I wonder. No, it's not been added. Okay. Okay, we still got a few more characters here. So that's interesting though, for sure. But she took it as a patronizing way to pity her. Because the person who said it had acted like she was looking at a wounded animal.
ま、あんな変態の言ってたことなんて今更どうでもいいけどさ。
That episode might have made her the most confused she had ever been in her life. Yet, what shocked young Aoko the most was to look of pity on the face of the person she admired the most. No, that doesn't make sense.
喧嘩。
The abrupt comment stopped her in her tracks.
ごめん、聞いてなかった。喧嘩ってあの喧嘩？
Alice nodded.
あなたの感想だけじゃ状況はよくつかめないけど。
That's a cute little outfit, honestly.
つまり、青子はその人に喧嘩を売りたかったのね。
Alice bit into the very last hanpen. Her remark was unexpected but completely on point.
なんでそうなるのよ。私はあんなのと1秒だって関わりたくないだけだってば。だいたいそれどころじゃないし、興味とか全くないし、会話もこれ以上ないってぐらい簡潔に切り上げたし。
She has so many different angry faces.
なら、どうして今そんな話をするの？
え？それはそのあんたに今日の調査過程を知らせてあげたのよ。それ以外何があるっていうの？
Man, I never would have thought that I would have a visual novel with subtle physical language, like the reluctant tapping forward there, right? And it's actually subtle. It's not like LA Noir or something where it feels so overblown. There's just a small subtlety to that. What other reason could Alice be suggesting Aoko had for bringing it up? It would be several hours later in bed that Aoko realized she had dug her own grave.
いいけど、私は別に。ただ、青子は本当にその人が嫌いなの？
Alice ate her hot pot in silence as if she was honoring some sort of sacred ritual. Her face was as indifferent as always, but she was secretly enjoying how flustered Aoko was. Aoko was none the wiser to this. Normally, she would have noticed immediately, but she was not quite herself at this moment.
本当にって、そりゃそうよ。気に食わないって何度も言ってるじゃない。
そう。具体的には？
は？具体的にはってそんなのに理由なんて。
She trailed off as she finally realized how disagreeable she was being. Dang. Introspection. Whoop. That was a button that I accidentally pressed. I think that was L2, which I guess was rewind. She could come up with no reason why. Her instincts had told her that she was incompatible with that hick. But why such a strong reaction? Maybe he's made of something not human that is related to the thing that you don't like from your fam. Am I just predicting the plot? I'm really worried I am. Because I feel like maybe there'll be a twist, but mind you, I could just be so Nasu-pilled that I know it all, right? More than anything in the world, Aoko hated emotions without reasons and decisions made with no hated emotions without reason and decisions made with no rationale.
嫌いなものは嫌いなんだから、ちゃんとどっかに理由があるんだと思うけど。
I've seen this gif. It's a very strong gif. She became more flustered the more she talked. Unfortunately for her, she could not come up with a coherent reason to hate Soujyuro Shizuki. It was not his fault that he had zero common sense. It was the fault of the environment he grew up in. In fact, it was admirable that he was trying so hard to adapt to civilized society. As clueless as he might seem, it was not a complete waste of space. If he seemed a bit slow, it was only because his gentle nature compelled him to think before acting. When one looked at everything objectively, the conclusion was obvious. As much as she was loath to admit it, he really was the good guy everyone had pegged him as.
ちょっと本気かっての。人間的に悪いところ、本当にみじんもないのか？あれ。
There was plenty, so she left it at that for now. The chopsticks she had been using came to a stop. She was getting very annoyed. An irrational hatred burned through her head. Unable to come to terms with her feelings, she desperately tried to analyze Soujyuro, but her mind only went in more circles. Alice fixed Aoko with a deadpan stare.
呆れた。
A small sigh.
らしくないわね、青子。
Those words were the final blow. Aoko felt the floor fall from under her. She was unable to leave her chair until long after Alice had finished eating and left. Oh. It is now night. However, even after getting knocked down, Aoko Ozaki was not one to be kept that way. She made short work of clearing up after dinner and, after conceding the first bath of the night to Alice, the first bath, well, I guess they need to do two, so yeah, that makes sense, left the drawing room. Since it was customary in these sorts of mansions to turn off the lights when leaving an empty room, the only lit areas of the house were the drawing room and the two girls' bedrooms. The upstairs was enveloped in darkness. Aoko briskly made her way to the deepest part of the east wing, along the long corridor, illuminated only by the light of the moon, and arrived at her room.
結論として、やっぱり騙し討ちは気に食わない。
She had been considering this on the way down the corridor, or perhaps ever since she left the drawing room. The moment she entered her room, she drew her proverbial line in the sand.
やるにしても隠れるのはなし。正面から堂々と向かい合って理由を言う。
This was not a concession driven by feelings of sympathy or compassion. For her, this was simply the way things ought to be.
よし、そうと決まれば。
After settling her resolve, she heads to the study next door.
木曜棚の当時欄、緑の背表紙と。
That sounds like a terrifying way of organizing your shelves. Without hesitating, she removed one book from the countless volumes on the shelf. The introductory textbooks transported here from the Aozaki residence were separated into 6 shelves labeled Monday to Saturday. Aoko had organized the books by topic, genre, and purpose, and had more or less memorized exactly what was in her personal library. Referencing any of this material took her no time at all, as was befitting the role of the keeper of this study. Though this keeper's fiefdom was nothing more than a small room. Both Aoko and Alice had given up all hope on the cluttered mess of the library in the annex. Nevertheless, on occasion, Aoko would have no option other than to give Alice a heads up and visit it when the study did not meet her needs.
できればそれは避けたいところだけど、と。
Aoko placed the thick green book down and took a seat. The desk she sat at was sturdy but uninviting. It wasn't the sort of furniture girls her age grew attached to, but she liked its minimalist elegance nonetheless. She flipped lightly through the book's old, worn pages.
アリスみたいな結界は私にはまだ無理だ。人払いはその場所自体に頼らないといけないか。
The mountains, the woods, the school building empty at night. Could you imagine fighting there? She was looking for a place that would be, except for the worst of luck, void of people, allowing her to forego the use of magecraft.
茨の壁だの魔力の霧だの。そういう回りくどいのもなんだしな。退路を断つっていうなら、もっとこう見た目にも状況的にも派手な方が効果的だし。
Muttering about how there had to be some basic spell that fit her needs, she continued to flip through the pages. Goes without saying that she was looking for a way to deal with the witness from the previous night. Magecraft's uses were many, but not all-encompassing. Fundamentally, Magecraft was good for making things or phenomena that already existed, while more or less bypassing the time and resources conventional means would require. It was, however, unable to manifest phenomena that were impossible in this world. It was essentially an equivalent exchange that used a variety of shortcuts. A phenomenon made possible by human hands, actualized by an individual's power. That was generally what Magecraft was. To give a simple example, if Aoko were so inclined, she could make an entire lake appear at the mansion. However, it had to be something that existed within this world. Nothing, not even the smallest matter, could escape this unbreakable law. Even if Aoko were to release a level of heat on par with an F-15 fighter jet's afterburner, that event would only be possible if the circuit named Aoko Ozaki acted as a temporary input variable in a magical formula. The derived equivalence was simply a value that had already occurred in reality. If the variable in the equation did not exist elsewhere in reality, the spell would not be valid. The imaginary element known as magical energy was like a lie that could only slip its fantasy through the network of order at the moment of ignition. Giving form to non-existent illusions invading reality was something the universe did not allow.
とは言っても、エーテルは基本何にでもできるんで、大元が嘘なんだっけ？魔力だけで構成されたものは幻想扱いされて急速に消えていくとか。典型的な結界、茨の壁とかは、もともと茨を生やしておいて、魔力で一気に成長、強化してるものだし。
This might actually be straight up new info for me.
魔力っていうのは結局、使い勝手のいいガソリン兼、事象に火をつける火花ってわけで。
I do like how she said gasoline can in English.
なんて言いつつ、架空要素云々より、基本的な回路の接続と、魔力を加工して弾くことぐらいしかできないのよね、私。
Laughing to herself, she looked for a bounded field or something similar, more suited to her current ability. The identity of the witness was still unknown, but if they were a classmate of Aoko's, she had any number of pretexts by which to lure them out. The problem was after that.
そうなると、問題は命中率よね。一撃で決めないと逃げられちゃうだろうし。
To be honest, she wasn't confident she could handle this smoothly without Alice's support. But Aoko saw no reason to ask for help given that the target in question was a regular bystander. Fledgling as she was, she still had her pride as a mage. She continued to turn through the pages rhythmically. In the midst of a fluttering sound of thumbing through the volume, Aoko suddenly stopped her finger at a certain page.
見つけた。
She smiled to herself. It was a simple formula that she had tucked away somewhere in the recesses of her memory, a spell of simple destruction.
檻をね、作ればいいのよ。狩りをする時の常套手段じゃない。獲物を逃げられないようにするのは。
She placed a bookmark in the book, closed it, got up and returned to her room. Suddenly, she felt someone watching her. Oh, spooky. Through the window, she saw her in the night. A girl, staring back with a cold-hearted expression. Are you talking about the reflection, or are you talking about someone else? The girl's face was hers, there we go. The expression undoubtedly her own. She began planning on how to erase the witness. Though to say it was something as elaborate as a plan was overkill. This was just a job. She was going to make a cage and lure her prey into it. There was no getting around it. Premeditated violence.
そろそろアリスは上がったかな?
Spoken in hope a bath would return some warmth to her chilled heart. About 20 minutes had passed and she gave Alice the privilege of the first of the hot water. Alice tended to bathe quickly, finishing well under 10 minutes. Her roommate was the type that could not understand the spirit of the bath, treating it as nothing more than a necessity for looking after one's body. For Alice, the concept of staying at a hot spring inn sounded more like a chore than anything, though in this regard, Aoko had to agree.
よし、浴場はカラッと。あれ、今に電気ついてる?
Oh. It was unusual for Alice to sit in the drawing room after her bath. On nights when she had nothing to discuss, it was her style to return directly to her bedroom.
アリス、いるの?
Alice nodded. With no book in hand, it appears that Alice had been waiting for Aoko.
そういうこと。私も信用ないな。
Okay. Aoko scratched her head in exasperation. Was it that Alice was worried about her or had no faith in her? Her expression was so calm, Aoko could hardly figure what she was thinking.
方針なら決まったけど。聞く？
その顔を見れば聞かなくてもわかるわ。
Dang, you're good at reading people.
迷いがなくなったのはいいことだけど。悪い癖ね、青子。
Alice let out a small sigh. It was unusual for Alice to make such a display of her disappointment.
ええ。騙し討ちは趣味じゃないから。殺すにしても正々堂々。正面から理由を言った後にする。それならすっぱり後腐れもないし。文句ある？
文句はないわ。そういうの、好きか嫌いかはこの際関係ないでしょうし。けど、
確実性はどうかってことでしょ？私、いまいち命中率悪いし。その辺の問題は場所選びでフォローしようかなと。
And if you've been failing over and over, then that just means you're due to succeed, right? That's just how odds work?
私はアリスのようにはいかないから、物理的に逃げられない場所にしようと思うんだけど、何かアイディアない？
Alice nodded and thought. The finger that gently rested on her lips indicated that the question was to her liking.
鏡はどう？鏡の国なら永遠に閉じ込めていられるけど。
Terrifying?
あんた、そういうところ常識ないわよね。
She frowned at Alice's bad taste. It was the kind of idea her roommate found to be inspired, but Aoko knew it was out of the question. Aoko was looking for a natural bounded field she could prepare, not a realm bordering on true magic she couldn't create to begin with.
なら他を当たるのね。でも、ここを使うのだけはやめてちょうだい。
言われなくても分かってるって。
I feel like she's gonna bring him here.
あー、けど、
Oh,
そうね。
yeah.
ミラーハウスはいいアイディアかも。
Aoko smirked and shifted her balance away from the wall she was resting on.
サンキュー、アリス。全体の流れは出来上がったわ。
You're gonna trap him in the house.
ほんと。こういうのってダメ元でも相談してみるものよね。
And that's how he gets here. Okay, okay. Now in a good mood, Aoko retreated from the drawing room. Alice tried and failed to visualize what kind of blueprint Aoko had drawn up in her mind, but whatever it was, it appeared to be the thorough kind Aoko was good at. Aoko headed for the bathroom, humming to herself as she went. A year and a half of sharing a living space had taught Alice something. When Aoko Ozaki was in this good a mood, only deep trouble could follow.
青子一人に任せていいのか。
You can speak, bird. There he is! Look at him! What a little lad. It was unclear how long the bird had been in the drawing room. Chirping at Alice, the robin-like bird, it's not. That's clearly not. If you've ever seen a robin, you would know that is not a robin. That is a chickadee. That is just a chickadee. The robin-like bird pranced across the furniture as if it were its property.
そうね。彼女が一人でやると言ったのだから、任せるのが正しい信頼関係なんでしょうけど。
The girl in black raised her arm. The bird, chirping once again, alighted on her outstretched, affectionate
嫌な
finger.
話だけど。
Can I just say, part of me is thinking like, oh, the bird's gonna be the final boss. Like, freaking, I never even beat the Fire Emblem on the Wii. But like right away I was told. Like, see that bird that Micaiah has? Yeah, that's the final boss. I'm like, what? Huh? What do you mean? Right away I learned that.
信頼と信用はまた違う話よね。
The bird puffed out its stout chest in agreement. Now I don't trust any bird partner in video games. And Aoko was none the wiser to her roommate's rather unsettling comments. All right. I say we are going to leave this here. As soon as... There we go. There we go. We will see you guys next time for some more Let's Play Witch on the Holy Night. Or Mahoyo Tsukai no Yoru, if you want to be cool about it. Yes, we will see you then for some more. Hopefully my throat gets a bit better. You might have heard just a little bit of stuff, but it's fine. It's fine. We'll see you guys next time for some more, guys. Ciao.